Bigfoot is not just big in stature. For some, it's also big business. There's long been a thriving economy built around the legend. Of course, we're a part of that, but we try to get things right. So when we heard an account of a man who said he killed Bigfoot, we had to investigate.
September 6th, 2012 in San Antonio, Texas. Rick Dyer, a self-proclaimed Bigfoot tracker, has set a trap for the elusive beast after he heard of a 911 call reporting the sighting of a large hairy animal devouring a deer in the woods.
I wanted to attract him, so I went out and got deer urine and pork ribs, and I hung the pork ribs on a tree. I scattered the deer urine all under the tree, so because Bigfoot is attracted to deer. And in the middle of the night, Bigfoot came back to eat the pork ribs, and I jumped out of the tent with my firearm and I shot at him a couple of times.
Rick initially claims he shot and killed Bigfoot, and soon thereafter, he releases these shocking photos to prove it. The images appear to show a frozen body of a deceased adult Bigfoot. You can see a face, lips, and in this wider shot, a full body covered in fur. Rick claims the animal is 8 feet tall, 4 feet wide, and weighs about 800 pounds. One photo also purports to show a long sternal scar allegedly made when the creature was autopsied at an undisclosed college in Washington state. Rick nicknames the creature Hank and takes the corpse on a national tour, charging people to view the body under plexiglass in a wooden coffin, and eventually pulling in close to $50,000. Field researcher Cliff Barrickman says that he's not surprised by where it all began. Apparently, Bigfoot is really big in the Lone Star State.
Texas is not generally thought of as Bigfoot habitat, but it absolutely is. They have a distribution over the continent very similar to that of black bears. They have the same needs as Sasquatches do. Eastern Texas gets a ton of rain from the Gulf of Mexico coming north. The more rain an area gets, the more Bigfoot reports come out of that particular area.
Reports date back to 1924, when the state's Folklore Society published a story about the strange case of the wild woman of Navidad.
The indigenous people of the area certainly knew about the Sasquatches that they lived among. When white settlers started coming into the area, they also ran across Sasquatches, and they reported them as wild men or wild women. And you can read newspaper reports and from settlers from as early as the 1920s or even the late 1800s.
But as we know, there's a difference between reports and proof.
There were red flags going up around Rick's claims almost immediately. Perhaps the biggest was that he has a history of hoaxing, most notoriously in a 2008 incident in which he and another man claimed to have found a Bigfoot corpse in Georgia. That turned out to be a frozen Halloween costume. The folks who consider themselves serious Bigfoot researchers take offense to that kind of fakery. So let's see what they have to say about this.
Anthropologist Kathy Strain believes Bigfoot exists, but she's doubtful this is it.
What I find problematic is that he says he shot it with a shotgun several times, and yet there's no evidence of that on the body.
Wildlife biologist Stephanie Shuttler also notes that something about the face just doesn't add up under close examination.
I don't understand why there's all this like chapping around the eyes and the lips look extremely chapped. It looks like it would live in a really cold area. The fact that this was supposedly shot in southern Texas, it's even stranger.
But Shuttler has an even bigger issue with how it's been preserved.
It looks almost like the eyes are glued shut. It just doesn't look like anything from the natural world. It reminds me of a Hollywood costume.
Professor of Anatomy and Anthropology Jeff Meldrum, perhaps the world's most famous Bigfoot believer, agrees with Shuttler about the discrepancies in the face, and then some.
The brow was quite high. It had a high forehead. These everted lips, this pug nose, these almost cherub cheeks. It was just such a funny looking depiction that did not seem in any way to comport with the many eyewitness descriptions and the sketches of Sasquatch.
For Meldrum, it's clear that not only is this creature not Bigfoot, it's a fabrication that lacks any backbone.
It was literally just a stuffed mannequin.
Our verdict? This is just another hoax. Rick may have provided photos of his alleged creature, but he never produced the results of his autopsy. This may have netted him some quick cash, but serious researchers say it was also a setback for their work and the reputation of the entire community.
September 2018, it's a warm night in Tomball, Texas, just north of Houston. Nick Daly and a group of his friends have come home from dinner to their apartment complex when they are astounded by mysterious lights in the sky.
Oh my God.
Take a closer look. 3 teardrop-shaped glowing objects appear to hover in a deliberate, coordinated motion. Nick's friend also begins recording. One thing is for sure, Nick has never seen anything like it.
They were circling around in formation and then come back to a triangle formation. It was incredible.
But as the crowd stands transfixed by the mysterious lights, the UFOs suddenly disappear and then reappear.
Look at him. Look at it. Look at him.
Nick is convinced whatever he witnessed, it's not from this world.
I am ex-military. I was in the United States Air Force. I've never seen flares act like that. I've never seen planes like that. It looks like UFOs to me.
According to author and journalist Alexis Brooks, this is far from the first time mysterious lights have been spotted in the Lone Star State.
These very strange UFO-type lights have been seen as recently as April of 2022 in a town called Kyle, Texas. These lights emanated a sort of orange glow, and local officials came up with no explanation.
These eerie, shimmering lights are similar to the ones seen in Tomball, but with one even more mysterious difference.
In the case of the Tomball UFO sequence, we have something that has been referred to as phasing. That some of these craft change their atomic structure so that they appear to be dematerializing and rematerializing. So is Texas rife with UFOs?
One of the first reported UFO incidents in Texas was on April 17, 1897, when a UFO crashed on a farm near Aurora, Texas, with claims of an alien pilot found dead inside. So have those aliens returned? Or is there another way to explain what Nick and his friends saw? Let's ask the experts.
First, we ask video forensic expert Michael Primo to examine the footage. Does what we see appear to be authentic?
We examined the file to determine if there were any original file signatures. No known file signatures were identified, and at this low of spatial resolution, it's very difficult to make determinations in reference to CGI. However, when the videos are placed side by side and synchronized, whatever occurred in the sky appears to be consistent across both videos.
Next, we go to aviation expert Tim McMillan. Are we simply looking at conventional aircraft, like an airplane or helicopter?
We're not seeing movements that are consistent with fixed-wing aircraft. What we're looking at here, they're really close, so they're violating how close you want to be to another aircraft. Close proximity, it becomes even more dangerous for a collision.
McMillan is also skeptical these could be another common flying machine.
Drone would match up best for what we've seen so far. But if they're drones, we have to start taking into account the amount of energy it takes. And so for these to be bright lights, they're not going to be able to stay up for very long because they're just going to drain that battery power.
We asked astronomer and video effects editor Mark D'Antonio if the answer is in front of us all along. Could they be sky lanterns?
Sky lanterns are possible, but they don't move the way these did. Sky lanterns are very subject to the wind. What they wouldn't do is sort of circle around each other, and at certain points in the video, they're leaving like a tail almost. That is very telling information.
In fact, D'Antonio believes those streaks are the final piece of the puzzle.
I think that this actually was very likely skydivers with flares.
But if these are nighttime skydivers, why then would they be jumping over Tomball, Texas at night? D'Antonio points to a similar event in Tomball 5 years earlier in 2013, which also featured slowly drifting lights.
There was a high school game, and they did in fact have skydivers with flares skydive into the game. We actually saw the three in the sky, and they separated from each other, and they actually left trails behind them, and that trail could be illuminated smoke from the flare brightness.
While D'Antonio makes a strong case for parachuters with flares, Our research hasn't been able to confirm there was a parachute demonstration that night in Tomball. And without definitive visual proof, we think many alternate possibilities are still on the table. Our verdict? For now, we're going to go with unexplained phenomenon. But if you're in Texas, be sure to keep looking up and send us what you see.
May 21st, 2022, Amarillo, Texas. It's around 1:25 a.m. and the zoo's security cameras are keeping their sleepless eyes on its animals when they capture this. A strange figure just outside the zoo's perimeter lurks in the darkness. As we push in, the figure appears to be standing on two legs just on the other side of the fence, looking inside. Shocked by the size of the creature and its rather wolf-like head, the Amarillo Zoo has begun asking the general public for help figuring out what this UAO, unidentified Amarillo object, could be. Take another look. This bipedal creature is quite puzzling. The image goes viral with thousands of people viewing it.
Now let's take a closer look at this image. A lot of folks have said they can discern fur on this thing's arms and pointed ears on its head. On the other hand, some people say it's standing like a human and it looks like it's wearing pants. And they see this as a jacket. As for me, I have no idea.
Field researcher Ken Gerhard cites the figure's resemblance to an infamous creature from folklore.
One of the theories is that it could in fact be a chupacabra, a famous creature that has been talked about throughout Latin American culture since the 1990s and is a blood-sucking type of creature. The name chupacabra actually means goat sucker because it's been alleged that these creatures will drink the blood of goats and other small farm animals. I've examined the remains of several creatures that have been called chupacabras, and all of those animals displayed very dog-like features. Pointy ears, long snouts, strange skin, long fangs, other physical abnormalities.
During a 2-month period in 2010, more than 300 goats were slaughtered in rural Mexico. Ranchers believe these deaths resulted from a chupacabra stalking their livestock. So could this image be a chupacabra stalking the zoo? Our experts investigate.
Professor of biology Floyd Hayes begins by estimating the size of the creature.
To me, it looks like the fence itself may be 12 feet high. The animal looks like it's maybe 6 feet behind the fence, which would make it smaller. It appears to be about half the height of the fence. It's maybe about 7.5 feet tall.
That's much bigger than the alleged size of a chupacabra, and there's another issue.
The chupacabra is allegedly a quadrupedal or four-legged animal, but this appears to be bipedal rather than quadrupedal. Bipedal means it's walking on two legs.
Next, wildlife biologist Stephanie Schuttler examines the creature's hair.
Chupacabras are described as being more hairless with gray and scaly skin. In this image, it seems to be more shaggy. It seems to have long hair, especially on top. So it doesn't fit the description.
And even though sightings of the creature have been reported, Schuttler says the proof has yet to be discovered.
Any evidence of animals that were thought to be chupacabras, it always ended up being a canid species like a coyote, dog, or fox with mange.
Demodectic mange is caused by a parasitic mite that lives in the hair follicles of canines. To rid themselves of the parasites, canines will scratch their fur and skin until it falls off. But the biggest red flag of all, why the zoo only released one image of such a startling discovery?
Camera traps, when they're triggered, they usually take multiple photos. So I would love to see the photos before and after. There's rarely a singular photo of an animal when the cameras are triggered. I suspect this was a publicity stunt by the Amarillo Zoo. If they really wanted to figure out what this animal was, there would definitely be more photos of it.
Now hold on a second. If this is a hoax, then the zoo has been keeping up the deception for months. Our verdict? Unidentified creature. A Seattle-based company specializing in wireless cameras donated 80 color night vision cameras to the Amarillo Zoo after this image went viral. So should this creature reappear, there should be plenty of proof to determine what it is.
It's 1980 by the Paluxy River near Glen Rose, Texas. Amateur paleontologist Glenn Cuban is on a mission to document a site that became famous since it was first discovered in 1908. This is why. Take a closer look. These are two trails of fossilized footprints that cross each other in the riverbank. But while one set of prints belongs to a dinosaur, Glenn says some believe the others are human.
They didn't find any distinct human toes, but we did find these oblong tracks in striding sequences that were larger than normal human feet, but were not obviously typical dinosaur tracks, and they roughly resemble human tracks.
Wait a minute, humans and dinosaurs side by side? Author Eric Grundhauser says according to believers of the young Earth theory, the answer is yes.
They believe in a biblical foundation that the Earth was only created between 4,000 and 10,000 years ago. Now, many people who have observed this site have taken this as evidence that humans and dinosaurs actually lived at the same time. And in a very literal sense, they crossed paths.
Young Earthers or creationists also point to depictions in other cultures around the world that supposedly confirm their beliefs, like this prehistoric cave drawing in Kutaisi, Georgia, that supposedly shows men hunting next to a dinosaur. But take a look at the size of these prints. They are huge.
They are much, much larger than any recorded human that we know of. Could they point to a lost species of human, a giant?
The mystery is complicated by this other set of prints found nearby. They seem to have normal human shape and size, don't they? How did those get here?
In 2020, evidence of stone tools found in Mexico led anthropologists to theorize that the first humans may have come to North America 30,000 years ago, almost 20,000 years earlier than previously thought. So our natural history is continuously changing when new facts come to light. But what are the facts when it comes to these alleged human footprints? We let our experts dip their feet in for answers.
Archaeologist Ed Barnhart says these prints aren't just too big to be human, they're size 35. And even if there were giant humans in our ancient history, they didn't make these prints.
Humans have an arch and toes, and we have a heel. When you really look at this footprint in the way that a scientific investigation does, it lacks those basic elements.
Humans have 5 metatarsal foot bones that connect to their toes. On the other hand, the reptile foot has 3 metatarsal foot bones, characteristically splayed out from the base. So these are the footprints of a reptile, and NASA geologist Dr. Bob Anderson thinks he knows what made these mysterious fossilized impressions.
What we have here is an ancient stream channel where multiple dinosaurs have walked through.
But if both sets of tracks are dinosaurs, why does one look so human?
It's just the way the dinosaur itself was walking across the ground.
Anderson says it's likely one of the dinosaurs was walking with its weight on the back of its feet, so the toes didn't have much contact with the mud. That's why it's less clear the feet only had 3 toes. And in some cases, erosion wore away the toe imprints even further, making the track look almost like it was made by a person wearing a shoe. That still leaves these other photos of prints from nearby, where the human toe, arch, and heel markings are clearly delineated. What about them?
There have been people who have an agenda supporting the idea of creationism and carved the tracks to look like human tracks.
Turns out Barnhart's right. Research reveals that most of the fake prints were carved by a man named George Adams in the 1930s, as his family later acknowledged. Adams decided to create better examples of the alleged giant human tracks in order to sell tickets to tourists during the Great Depression.
The verdict? None of these are prehistoric human tracks. Our experts have laid out explanations for all 3 types of phenomena seen in Glenn's photos: dinosaur metatarsal tracks, erosion, and intentional carvings. There's no evidence that humans ever walked with dinosaurs. So keep enjoying the Flintstones, just take them with a grain of salt.